Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have a brand new episode in our card spotlight series in which I look at a card that I feel is underplayed or underappreciated in Commander and discuss its merits. But before we do that, just a quick reminder to please click subscribe if you enjoy these videos. It's the only way the YouTube algorithm really notices me, and we're currently growing the channel and it helps me a lot. Much appreciated. And today we're talking about another new card from Phyrexia, or will be one. We're going to be talking about Expand the Sphere. For 3 colorless and 1 green, it's a sorcery that says, look at the top 6 cards of your library. Put up to 2 land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you put fewer than 2 lands onto the battlefield this way, proliferate a number of times equal to the difference. So this is a very interesting new card and new design, and I just really like it. I think it's very interesting how WotC is trying to turn away a little bit from search effects. I've seen a post from Mark Rosewater about this, about how they don't want people to have to take very long game actions when other people are just waiting and not doing anything. And this card is kind of designed with that in mind. Because on the surface it's very similar to something like Explosive Vegetation or Migration Path, basically a 4-mana sorcery that's going to put 2 lands onto the battlefield tapped. However, there's a few key differences. The first one is you're not searching. That means you don't need to shuffle, which is pretty nice. It saves a lot of time, but it does also mean that you can whiff. Now, 6 is a large enough number that it's very likely that you're going to hit 2 of them, but you might not. You might actually hit only 1, or if you get spectacularly unlucky, you might hit none at all. The upside from all this is that, of course, you can get non-basic lands. So in a deck that's like running 5 colors or something like that, particularly in a Super Friends deck or an Atraxa deck or something like that, then this is going to be better than Explosive Vegetation most of the time, and that's also because of the second clause. And the second clause on the card is what I think is such a brilliant design about this and why this card is so strong. It's a way to protect you against not hitting any lands with this, to make sure that you still get something out of it, because you're going to get to proliferate up to 2 times depending on how many lands you find. If you don't find any lands, or you don't want to put any lands onto the battlefield with this, you just get to proliferate twice. Or you can just put 2 lands onto the battlefield, in which case you won't proliferate at all, or you can do 1 of each. So to quickly analyze that, getting 2 lands for 4 mana is great. Obviously that's very much on curve, particularly if they're non-basics what you're getting. Getting 2 proliferates for 4 mana is also really good. I would say on average proliferate is worth about 2 mana, so using only 1 card and getting 2 instances of it is pretty solid. It can be a big deal if your board has got +1/+1 counters on them. Suddenly they're +2/+2 bigger, so it's quite strong. And a combination of both is also pretty good. Getting a Farseek effect with a proliferate attached to it for 4 mana, I would say is pretty fair. It's probably the weakest mode out of all 3, but it's still a fair card. So that's the thing, no matter what you're hitting here, you're getting something pretty good as long as your deck is based around counters of any sort. That's the one stipulation. You have to have a deck that cares about the counters, otherwise the proliferate doesn't really do anything for you, right? But then again, there's a lot of decks that care about counters in some way or another, maybe incidentally, or like really care about counters. So something like, again, the new Izuri Commander, this is going to be great in. Any green-white deck that cares about counters, there's a ton of those. Something like Catilda, for example, will really enjoy this. It's also really, really good in Atraxa, as we mentioned, because any sort of Super Friends deck, this is going to be fantastic in. Super Friends decks tend to be at least 3 to 4 colors, often 5, so just being able to get non-basics with this is much better than something like Explosive Vegetation. And it also means that it's not a dead draw late game. Late game, in those kind of decks, you might not need the extra 2 mana, but getting 2 extra instances of proliferate is really, really good. So the flexibility on this and the fact that you can always choose to proliferate is really good. And I think that flexibility and that power is the reason this card is going to be super strong and super prevalent in Commander in the future. So there you have it. That has been our card spotlight for today. What are your thoughts on this card? Let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care. Woo!